In the heart of Sky City 9, where the towers touched the clouds and the skies were always gray, a large court building stood strong in the middle of the upper district. People called it the Dome of Justice, but some believed justice no longer lived there. They said it belonged to the rich, to the powerful, and to the untouchable. Today, the most powerful man in the city was on trial. His name was Victor Haxwell, a wealthy tycoon who wore a golden suit stitched with real stardust. His shoes were polished like mirrors, and his eyes held the confidence of someone who believed the world belonged to him. He entered the courtroom slowly, as if he owned it. Reporters whispered his name. Haxwell, is this finally it? He won't go down. He never does. Victor smiled at the cameras. His perfect white teeth flashed like a commercial ad. As he walked past the wooden benches, he didn't even look at the people sitting there. He didn't need to. To him, they were nothing, just background noise. When he reached the defense table, he leaned back in his chair like it was a throne. Then the room went quiet. The doors behind the judge's bench opened. She entered slowly, calmly. A tall, dark-skinned woman in a black robe. Her eyes were sharp, focused, cold, but not unkind. Her name was Judge Amara Creed. She did not wear jewels or gold. No bright makeup or flashing shoes, just simple black. But when she walked in, it felt like the entire room shifted. Victor raised an eyebrow. That's the judge, he said loudly, so everyone could hear. He leaned toward his lawyer and whispered, not quietly enough, "She looks like she came from the lower zones. Is this a joke?" The people in the courtroom turned to stare. A few gasped. A child sitting with his mother held her hand tighter. The silence was heavy, but Judge Amara Creed didn't blink. She calmly took her seat. She looked directly at Victor, not with anger, but with something colder, control. She spoke, voice clear and strong. "Mr. Haxwell, this court will not bend to money or fear, and neither will I." Victor chuckled, a soft laugh. "Let's see about that." He was on trial for ordering the destruction of Colony N7, a small, poor settlement on a desert moon. Hundreds had died. Homes were lost, all for a mining project that Victor wanted. His company had already made billions. And yet, he had walked free many times before. Everyone knew Victor Haxwell had powerful friends. He paid off judges, bought evidence, and made witnesses disappear. He had never been afraid of a courtroom. Why would he start now? His lawyer stood and began listing false facts. The colony was abandoned, Your Honor. The explosions were accidental. The victims were illegal settlers. But the people in the room knew the truth. Many had family in that colony. Some had buried loved ones. Still, Victor smiled. Still, he acted like he couldn't lose. Then, from behind the bench, Judge Amara tapped a screen. The courtroom lights dimmed. A large hollow screen appeared in the air. "Before we begin," she said, "let's make one thing clear." She played a short video. It showed the colony before the attack, alive, full of children, workers, families. Then it showed the explosion, fire, screaming. Victor looked annoyed. He leaned back, arms crossed. "You can play all the sad movies you want," he said. "The law is written in paper, not feelings." Judge Amara said nothing. But inside her head, memories burned. She had seen Colony N7 once long ago. She remembered the smiles, the hope. She remembered the day it went silent. Her sister had worked there. Her sister never came home. Victor didn't know that. He didn't know that Amara had spent 5 years collecting secret files, that she had hacked into deep systems and hidden truths, that she had chased every lead, every witness, every line of code. He thought she was just a judge from the lower zones. But Amara Creed was more than a judge. She was a hunter. And this courtroom was her trap. Victor Haxwell leaned back in his chair like he was watching a boring show. He waved to the reporters and whispered to his lawyer, "She's trying to scare me with emotions. That never works. I've already bought 3 judges this year." But Judge Amara Creed said nothing. She didn't even look at him. Instead, she tapped her tablet again. "Let's continue," she said calmly. "Mr. Haxwell, are you aware of Protocol 87C? Victor raised an eyebrow. Never heard of it. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably. He had. Judge Amara nodded. Protocol 87C allows any judge, under emergency law, to reopen blocked government files if there is proof of corruption or corporate abuse in a high death zone. Victor's smile faded slightly. I don't like where this is going, he muttered. Amara tapped again. The holo screen above the court changed. A new file opened. A top-secret document. Confidential. Sealed by the ear of the High Council. The crowd leaned forward. This document was buried, Amara said. Someone paid a lot of money to make sure it stayed buried. Victor's face turned pale for the first time. The document showed signed orders. Victor Haxwell's signature on an attack order for Colony N7. His lawyer stood up in panic. Objection. This document is stolen evidence. Judge Amara didn't flinch. It was legally recovered using Protocol 87C. Reporters in the courtroom started whispering. Victor stood up. You can't use that against me. I'll call my contacts. Amara raised her hand. Sit down, Mr. Haxwell. You're not in your office. This is a court of law. Victor sat, but his hands were shaking now. She tapped again. Now a voice recording played, a call between Victor and one of his commanders. The colony is in the way, Victor said on the call. But sir, there are families there. I don't care. Blow it. I want results before the cycle ends. The courtroom gasped. A woman started crying. A man stood and yelled, That was my brother. You killed my brother. Guards held the man back. Judge Amara signaled him to calm down. I know, she said softly, and I promise, justice is coming. Victor's lawyer whispered, We need to call the council. Now. Victor wiped sweat from his forehead. This wasn't going how he expected. Then Judge Amara spoke again. Her voice was different now, stronger, deeper, like a storm rolling in. I was assigned to this case by chance, but I stayed because of something personal. Victor looked up. I once knew someone who worked at Colony N7, she said. A woman. She was kind, smart. She dreamed of building a school for the children there. She paused. That woman was my sister. The room fell silent. Victor stared at her. You're related to a victim. That's not allowed. It is allowed, she replied coldly, because I didn't take this case for revenge. I took it to make sure no one else buries the truth again. The screen showed a map of all Haxwell Industries' illegal projects, over 30 hidden sites. How did you get this? Victor whispered. Amara stood. Do you remember a hacker named Obsidian Whisper who stole your files 5 years ago? Victor froze. That was you. Amara nodded slowly. Every corrupt file, every deleted witness name, every voice you silenced, I was watching. Reporters now stood, cameras flashing nonstop. Victor panicked. You can't do this. I'll pay you double to shut this down. Judge Amara stepped closer to the bench. I'm not for sale. Not now. Not ever. Victor reached for his emergency communicator. Amara smiled coldly. That won't work either. She nodded toward the back of the room. Peace enforcers entered, but not the usual ones. These wore red and gold. Internal command agents. The highest level force. They only answered to one thing, truth. You're under arrest, Mr. Haxwell, one of them said. Victor screamed. No, I own this city. But they pulled him from his chair. Judge Amara watched him being dragged away. Still calm, still in control. Then she turned to the court. Let this trial be a reminder. Wealth can build towers, but it cannot bury justice. The courtroom was still echoing from Victor Haxwell's screams as he was dragged out by the internal command agents. But Judge Amara Creed didn't celebrate. She sat quietly, looking at the crowd. Her face was strong, but her eyes carried years of pain. Outside the court, people gathered around holo screens replaying the trial. Across Sky City 9, and even nearby planets, the news spread fast. Victor Haxwell arrested by secret evidence. Black female judge breaks silence. Reveals hidden corruption. Amara's office was flooded with calls and messages. Some were full of praise. Others were threats. Her assistant, Juno, ran in. Judge Creed, there's a message from someone calling themselves the architect. They say they have more data, but only for your eyes. Amara stood up. Tell them to meet me tonight, she said quietly. Later that night, secret tunnel under the city. Judge Amara entered a dark, narrow passage below the city. Her robe was gone. She wore a sleek black suit, her badge hidden. Waiting in the shadows was a tall figure in a silver mask. You took down Haxwell, the figure said. That was brave, but dangerous. Amara didn't flinch. I need the rest of the files. There are more like him. The masked person nodded, then handed over a small silver cube. It glowed with red light. This contains names, locations, everything the elite have tried to erase. But if you open it, they'll come for you. Amara took it. Her hand didn't shake. I'm not afraid. Back in the court building, the next day, while Victor sat locked in a high-security cell, his team was already working. They were planning something big, something illegal. In a luxury tower on the east side of Sky City 9, Victor's cousin, General Kalos Haxwell, watched the news with cold eyes. She embarrassed our name, he said. We won't let that stand. He sent a command. Activate Project Eclipse. Meanwhile, Judge Amara sat alone in her chambers. The silver cube was now open, its contents projected into the air around her. So many names. So many crimes. One caught her eye. Kalos Haxwell. Classified Operation. Colony Cleanse. Her jaw tightened. I thought Victor was the worst, she whispered. But this is darker. Suddenly, her screen flickered. A new message blinked in red. They know you have it. They're coming. Amara stood. She pressed a hidden button under her desk. Metal walls slid into place. The room sealed itself. Seconds later, the building shook. A powerful explosion ripped through the West Wing. Emergency alarms screamed. Peace enforcers rushed in. But Amara was already moving. She wasn't just a judge now. She was a target. Somewhere else, in the prison holding Victor. Victor smirked in his cell. They won't hold me for long, he whispered to himself. You think you won, Amara? He laughed. My cousin is coming, and when he arrives, there will be no more trials, just war. Sky City 9's court building had been attacked. News channels were calling it a terror strike. But only a few people knew the real reason. Judge Amara Creed had uncovered a list of powerful criminals. And now those criminals wanted her silenced. Amara stood on the rooftop of a safe house hidden above the clouds. Her black suit flapped in the wind, and her eyes watched the burning skyline. She held the glowing cue tightly. Time to show the people what they've been hiding, she whispered. Inside the high-security prison. Victor Haxwell sat in a room full of screens, smiling. A guard had betrayed the system and brought him communication access. Victor spoke into a hidden mic. Where's Kalos? A voice replied, he's landing now, and he's bringing the Eclipse droids. Victor leaned back. Then tonight, the judge dies. Back at the safe house, Amara activated the cube. Suddenly, a massive hologram formed in the sky above Sky City 9. It showed secret videos, soldiers clearing innocent colonies, leaders taking bribes, victims crying in the streets. One face kept showing up again and again. General Kalos Haxwell. People on the streets stopped walking. Every eye turned toward the sky. A silence spread across the city, and then a roar of anger. How long have they lied to us? We to USTEDM. Who is this Judy G? She's a hero. But far below the city, General Kalos landed with 10 black Eclipse droids. These machines weren't just robots. They were war machines. Kalos spoke coldly. Find Amara Creed and erase her. The droids scattered into the wind. Judge Amara didn't run. She walked straight into the city square. Thousands of people were now watching her on the big holo screens. She raised her hand. I am not the law. I'm just a servant of truth. The crowd clapped. But then, boom. One of the Eclipse droids landed in front of her. Its arms turned into cannons. The crowd screamed. The machine said, "Judge Amara Creed, stand down or be destroyed." Amara didn't move. "I won't run," she said, "because I'm not afraid anymore." Suddenly, the ground shook. From behind Amara, dozens of peace enforcers rushed in, but not just any troops. They were loyalists. One of them shouted, "She saved our families. Protect her." A battle broke out in the square. Lasers flew. People ran. The sky turned red. Far above, Victor watched the war begin on a screen. He laughed. This is just the start. But as he smiled, his door clicked. Someone was outside. The smile faded. Then the door exploded open. A figure walked through the smoke. A familiar voice said, "You thought I wouldn't find you, Victor." It was Judge Amara. And this time, she wasn't here to hold court. Smoke filled the prison hallway. Victor Haxwell stood frozen as Judge Amara Creed stepped through the broken door. Her black coat moved like a shadow behind her. Victor's voice shook. How? How did you find me? This place is off the grid." Amara's eyes were calm. "Justice doesn't care for grids, Victor. It always finds a way." Behind her, 2 loyal peace enforcers entered, holding energy cuffs. Victor laughed, trying to sound brave. "You can't arrest me. My brother commands the Sky Army." Amara stepped closer. "Your brother lost that army an hour ago. The people took it back." She held up a small hologram. It showed General Kalos on his knees, surrounded by his own captured droids. Victor's face turned pale. Outside, the city had changed. Where once people feared speaking up, now they marched together, chanting Amara's name. She had shown them the truth. They called her the people's judge. News drones flew above, recording everything. Her story was spreading across galaxies. In the courtroom again, Victor now sat behind the defendant's table, but this time in chains. The room was filled with ambassadors, citizens, and even former allies. All eyes were on Judge Amara, who sat at the center bench. Her voice was calm, but powerful. "This court is not about revenge. It is about truth." Victor tried to interrupt. "All of this means nothing. You're just a woman from the slums." Gasps echoed in the room. Amara looked at him without anger. "Yes, I am. And I wear that with pride." She stood. "And now you will answer not to me, but to every voice you silenced." She pressed a button. Suddenly, giant holoscreens lit up around the room. One by one, victims of Victor's empire appeared. A mother who lost her home in the colony fires. A child whose school was destroyed for mining. A scientist jailed for refusing to lie. Each gave a short message. The courtroom was silent. Even Victor looked down. Then something surprising happened. A small alien boy entered the room. It was the same boy Victor had once called a worthless thief. He looked up at the Tycoon and said, "You tried to break us, but you made us stronger." Victor turned away in shame. Judge Amara stood tall. "This trial is over. The sentence will be announced tomorrow." But the people, they've already decided. That night, as Amara walked home through the city, children waved at her, strangers smiled. Lights glowed in every window. But Amara didn't smile back, not yet. Because something in her heart still warned her. This fight wasn't over. The courtroom was silent as Judge Amara Creed entered for the final time. Victor Haxwell stood chained, his gold suit replaced with a plain prisoner's uniform. His eyes were tired. He hadn't slept since the people's voices echoed in the trial. The gallery was full. Even the galactic media had come. This was no longer just a local case. It had become a symbol across space. Judge Amara sat tall at the bench. She looked straight at Victor. "This is not just about one man. It's about the system that let him rise. It's about how silence becomes power when fear controls the room." She paused. But not anymore. Suddenly, the court's floor opened, revealing a clear glass platform. Beneath it floated holographic images of all the colonies Victor had harmed. Burning buildings, crying families, crushed schools, erased forests. The images played one after another. The audience wept. Victor turned away, but the images followed him. He couldn't escape them. Amara pressed a button on her bench. This is the sentence. The verdict. Victor would not be sent to a standard prison. Instead, by a new law passed just hours before, he would be forced to work in the very colonies he destroyed, to rebuild them with his own hands. For 25 years, he would live among the people he once crushed. No guards, no luxury, only hard work, service, and silence. Victor's voice cracked. You can't do this. Amara leaned forward. I'm not doing it, Mr. Haxwell. Justice is. The audience stood and applauded. Victor was taken away. For the first time, he didn't speak. Outside the court, crowds filled the plaza. People sang. Flags flew. They weren't cheering just for the sentence. They were cheering for what it meant. Change, hope, a future. Amara stood at the top of the steps. Reporters asked her how it felt to win. She looked at the sky and replied, I didn't win. The truth did. Then she turned and walked away, quiet, steady, and powerful. As she disappeared into the city lights, one thing was clear. This judge wasn't just feared. She was remembered. Forever.